For today's social studies lesson, you're going to need your social studies book. If you did not get a social studies book, because they were supposed to give them out when you picked your computer up, if you did not get one, make sure you message me so that I can try to get one and put it in your kit that you pick up for October. If you do have your book, get it, pause this, go get it, and go to page 186. Now, not every time that we do social studies will be just a reading day, but today we are going to do a lot of reading out of our book. My book looks a little different than yours since it's the teacher's edition. It has extra here, but I don't have a student one to be able to follow along with. So pause it until you get yours out and get to 186. If you don't have one, then you're just going to listen today. All right, so we're going to start off with a unit about citizenship. And our first unit lesson is called The Reasons for Rules and Laws, because everybody, I don't care how old you are, if you are young, old, short, tall, black, white, purple, yellow, it doesn't matter. Everybody has rules that they have to follow to keep everybody safe. So we're going to read together. And we're going to skip this because it says we're the partner. We're not going to do that. So we're going to start right here, and you can follow along with me and read in your book. People set rules to keep us safe and to help us. Different places have different rules. For example, in school, you should not run in the hallway. At home, you might have a rule to brush your teeth before going to bed. In your community, using a crosswalk during traffic is an important rule. In order for rules to work, people have to obey or follow them. So obey means like to follow them, to do that. If you obey your parents, you listen to them. You're following the rules, the directions that they're giving to you. Obeying is a very important thing for a student to do. So like if I ask you to do an assignment, it's important that you obey and you follow those directions and do the assignment. That's a rule that I have, is that I expect my virtual learners to obey. All right, so if you look at the picture, it has a photograph. That's a text feature, not a picture, a photograph of a bus with kids on it. And it says, when you obey rules at school, you are being a good citizen. So we do have a list of rules at Haley Elementary. Some of you might recognize it. It's way across the room, so I'm not even going to go get it. It's the PBIS matrix. So we have rules for the hallway. One of them is to walk on the silver line, to keep your hands to yourself, either to your sides or behind your back. We have rules for the bus, like don't roll down the windows and put your head and hands out the windows. You must stay sitting on your bottom. And all of these rules are very specific to help everybody stay safe. Rules are all about safety. We want our friends to be safe. We want our students to be safe. We want our community to stay safe. So that's why we have rules, even if you don't like the rules. My kids are always saying, when I grow up, I'm not going to have any rules for my kids. My children are always saying that. And I'm like, yeah, you will, because rules keep you safe. I have a rule that my son is not allowed to jump off of his bed because he likes to jump on his bed and then do a flying leap off of it. And I'm so mean because I won't let him do it. But really, it's just because I don't want him to fall off his bed and crack his head open and have to get stitches or staples and take him to the hospital, and I don't want that. That's not me being mean. That's me trying to keep him safe. All right, turn the page, 187. Okay, so on page 187, we're talking about citizenship. A citizen is a member of a community, state, or nation. So you guys are all citizens of the Haley community, the school. You're citizens of Fort Wayne community, that's our community where we live. Of Indiana, that's our state. And you're citizens of the United States of America, that's our nation. Obeying rules is one part of good citizenship. Citizenship refers to the character and behavior of a citizen. For example, when you obey the rules of your classroom, you are showing good citizenship. Your school, city, or town, state, and nation all value good citizenship. A great way to be a good citizen is to follow the rules of your community. Good citizenship can change over time, such as when new rules are made. When people obey the new rules, they are promoting good citizenship. So promoting, they're like demonstrating and showing like a good role model. Most of the time, citizens follow rules because they feel it is their responsibility to do so. A responsibility or duty is something that a person should do. For example, many citizens feel it is their responsibility to help other people. They might do that by coaching a youth sports team or helping people learn how to read. Have you guys ever taken on a responsibility for your community. Maybe if you guys go to church, maybe you did something to help other people at your church, or maybe you have a neighbor who's older or handicapped and they can't mow or they can't pick up sticks or shovel their driveway. Maybe you helped them. All of those are a great way to show citizenship and helping other people in your community. It's a really nice thing to do, too, to volunteer. Okay. Go ahead and turn the page. Okay, so on page 188, we're talking about rights and laws. Before we start, let's look at the photograph. It's always important that we look at these other pieces of information on our book and not just reading the words, because it gives us information about other important facts. So here, this is a photograph of somebody holding a sign saying it's time to cut carbon, and I don't know why she's holding that. So if I read this caption right here, it'll tell me why. It says this person is protesting an environmental issue. The Bill of Rights protects the right to protest. So protest means she disagrees with something, and so she's standing up for something. And sometimes people who protest hold signs and they're peaceful. Sometimes protests can get nasty, and you might have heard a little bit about that in the news lately. There have been some peaceful protests and some nasty protests. So protesting isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes they can go bad. All right. Rights and laws. Just as citizens have responsibilities, they also have rights. Rights are basic ideas or truths that people value. The United States government protects these rights with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So the Constitution, we talked about that last week. That should sound familiar. That was that we the people in order to form a more perfect union. It was all those things about fairness and treating each other kindly and respectfully and having peace. All that stuff is part of the Bill of Rights. You have already read that the Constitution provides a system of government. Now, we actually skipped that chapter because I'm skipping around, but we'll go back at some point. We're going to do it more around November, around election time. You have already read that the Constitution provides a system of government that approves, and enforces the nation's laws. A law is an official rule. Laws help to keep communities orderly and safe. For example, it is against the law to drive through a red stoplight. So there is a difference between a rule and a law. So like Mrs. Yonke might have a rule for my kids that they're not allowed to eat in the family room, because I don't like that because they spill on the carpet and the carpet's light colored and then it looks really dirty and stinky and blah. That's my rule. But it's not a law. It's not like, oh, one of my kids took their food out in the family room, I'm calling the police and they're getting arrested. Because it's not a law. There is a difference. Usually rules might be smaller. And people have different rules, like maybe I don't allow gum in my classroom, but maybe Mr. Springer does, something like that. But a law is something that is a big deal that affects a lot of people, that a group of people have come together and judged that this is something that all people need to follow for big group safety reasons, okay? The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, protects basic rights for American citizens. Some of the rights include freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Freedom of the press gives citizens the right to hear news that is not controlled by the government. The Bill of Rights also gives people the freedom to gather and peacefully protest a law they disagree with. So that's what's been going on in the news, is that people are allowed to get together and peacefully protest, meaning saying their opinion, putting up signs, but they are not allowed to get violent where they're throwing things and breaking windows and stuff like that, because then that big S word I keep saying, it's not safe, and people are getting hurt when things like that happen. So go ahead and turn to the next page, 189. Okay, so we're on 189, and I see a picture here, a photograph. Again, it's not a picture that somebody drew, a photograph. And I can see looks like they're voting. It says people vote to choose their leaders. And that's what's going to be coming up in November. We'll talk about that as we get closer. The First Amendment of the Bill of Rights explains many of these rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The Bill of Rights, Amendment 1, 1791. Now, holy moly, what did that even mean? There's a lot of big words, and since it was written so long ago, 1791, that's just not how we talk anymore. So stuff like that is very confusing to kids and even adults. Like me as an adult, when I read that, I'm like, was a what? Because it's very confusing. So sometimes it is hard to understand all of these rules and laws. So some laws protect the right to vote. For example, people can vote in an election even if they are out of town on the day of an election. Citizens vote to elect leaders who make laws. Voting is both a right and a responsibility. So I am an adult. I am of age to vote because you have to be 18 years of age to vote. And so that is a right that I have. Now, right means I am allowed to do it and they can't really take it away. But it doesn't mean that I have to do it. It's my choice. But then when they say it's a responsibility, it is the responsibility of people. It is to like help out. Remember, we talked about helping out the community, obeying, being a good citizen. Part of that is voting so that I'm being a good citizen and I'm helping contribute to good choices for my country, state, community, stuff like that. All right, next page. We're just going to do a little bit more reading. Actually, I think just one more page, and I think we'll be good. Let me just check real quick. 2 more, but they're very short, so it won't take very long. All right, page 190. Consequences of breaking rules and laws. Dun, dun, dun. If people do not obey rules and laws, there can be consequences. The consequences of violating or breaking a rule are usually not as bad as the consequences of breaking a law. When you break a classroom rule, for example, you might not be allowed to play outside. So that's definitely no fun, but it's not like it's going to go on your permanent record that on Friday, September 25th, so-and-so was not able to play outside. When someone breaks a law, the consequences vary. Violating a traffic law, for example, usually means having to pay money called a fine. So a traffic law would be running a stoplight, or not using your turn signal, or not stopping at a stop sign, something like that. Or speeding. You can get a ticket and a fine for speeding. Other times, the consequences can be more serious. Some people even go to jail for breaking a law. Lawmakers hope that the consequences of breaking a law will stop people from doing so. So, like, when it comes to violating a traffic law, if you're driving recklessly, like let's say the speed limit in a school area is 25 and you're going 80, that's to the point where it's not just that you were going a little over and need a fine. You could have put kids in danger and killed somebody. So then there might be a bigger consequence, like going to jail or something like that. All right, go ahead, and we are going to skip this next page. That's 191. We're going to go to 120. That's going to be our last page for today. We're going to talk about one last law for today called the Anti-Bullying Law from California, because bullying is something that I know we have talked about before at Haley School. Not necessarily this year in 3rd grade, but it is something that sometimes happens at schools that we want to try to stop. So anti-bullying law. In 1999, Georgia set up state laws to prevent bullying in schools. Since then, the other 49 states have created some kind of law or policy on bullying. Bullying is when a student teases or hurts another student. Bullying violates good school citizenship. You're not being a good citizen following rules and obeying if you are constantly bullying and picking on someone. Bullying has consequences. A bully may be suspended from school or not allowed to attend school for a period of time. A student may be expelled or kicked out of school for more serious bullying. Laws are primary sources because they are documents that a government writes during that time that the law is put in place. Okay, so thinking about bullying. One thing that happens a lot, especially in elementary school, is kids will say, they'll go home and say, so-and-so was bullying me, or I'm being bullied at school. And bullying does exist. It is a thing that sometimes kids do, and we do have to address it. And teachers are very serious about this. Even though you guys are virtual kids, there's still a thing called cyberbullying where kids are getting picked on their computers. And we want to make sure that that's not happening. And that is why when we do Zooms, I disable the chat for you guys to talk to each other so that nobody can be picking on each other. You're not allowed to send a Power School message to each other, only to me, so that everything is monitored so that we can make sure nobody is being bullied. But there is a difference between being bullied and somebody just being mean that day. So let's say we were in line and I kind of bumped Billy and Billy got mad and pushed me down to the ground. That was mean. That's not bullying because it just happened one time. It was a one-time thing. It was maybe even a misunderstanding because I bumped him, so he had to feel like he had to get revenge. But it's not bullying because it's not happening over and over a period of time. So if Billy started pushing me every day when we line up, or maybe 3 times a week, and it's been happening now for a couple weeks, at this point, we might be getting into bullying territory. It's when somebody keeps doing something, saying something, or doing something to you that is repeated, unwanted, and they don't stop over a period of time. That's what bullying is. So somebody just saying, you're not my friend anymore today at recess, that we just had a rude moment or a mean moment. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of rude and mean moments in school, period, because kids can be mean. But the best we can do right now is to make sure that we aren't being mean and that we are reporting if somebody else is being mean or rude to you or is continually doing things that is borderline bullying. So the last piece of your social studies lesson for today is I want you to get on the discussion board. It is on the same day where all the other Post-its are, but it's either going to be above or below the Post-it sheet. I can't put discussion boards on it. It makes me put them separate. So find the social studies discussion board, and I want you guys to post just one rule that you follow that you think is just a really good rule. It might be a rule you guys have at home. Like I said, in my family, you're not allowed to take food out into the family room. So it could be a rule like that. It could be a rule you follow when you're at school or when you're doing your virtual learning. It could be a rule that is just at grandma's house or just at church, or that you follow when you go to the store right now with a mask during COVID. So go ahead and get on the discussion board, post one really good rule that you and your family follow, and that's it for today. See ya.